Hello friends, this is Worm, and I want to talk today about in-game weapons and perks, and specifically in-game weapons and perks. We're not going to talk about armor and stuff like that, because over the past few weeks I've just kind of been thinking and playing in my mind with certain things in regards to perks and just weapons in general, and I kind of just want to use this video as an opportunity to talk about a variety of thoughts and problems and stuff like that I have with in-game weapons and perks. So without further ado, let's talk about it. But before we talk about it, I think we should diagnose what exactly an in-game weapon is. An in-game weapon, for those of y'all who might be new to Destiny 2, is basically a weapon that you can get through any high level or high effort activity. So things like Grandmaster Nightfalls dropping adept weapons, those would be in-game weapons. Trials of Osiris and its adept weapons also would be in-game weapons. Raid weapons, dungeon weapons. I would almost argue that comp weapons like the Belisarius, the Mercurial Overreach, and Rose are all considered in-game weapons. And why would we care about in-game weapons when we have 100 million other weapons in the game to worry about? Well, the reason why is because most in-game weapons feature very unique trait combinations. They feature high stats. They feature, in some cases, unique perks that you can only get on in-game weapons and stuff like that. So that's what an in-game weapon is. And then where I wanted to start, I guess, is with the most recent dungeon, which has some absolutely, I don't want to say awful, but the weapons, the in-game weapons from that dungeon are not at all exciting, right? I just got Buried Bloodline today, and I wasn't all that excited about it. I've got the bow. I've got what I would say is the god roll on the bow. I've got what I'd say is the god roll on the sidearm. I would say I've got the god roll on the sword, and I have only gotten a couple snipers, but in looking at the perks that the snipers can get, I'm really not excited for the sniper at all. And this is problematic because, to me personally, in-game weapons should be something that can find a place in every single build, right? And technically, yes, like if you're looking for a very niche, like what is it, a 90, if I'm not mistaken, Names Lance is a 90, maybe it's 140, I can't remember which one it is, but if you're looking for that specific archetype of sniper rifle that is strand as well, yeah, that's a great weapon to go with. You know, the bow is the first ever strand bow, legendary strand bow that we have in Destiny 2. That's great. Like if you're looking for something to complete your build, then yes, you have those available to you. But if you are kind of like me, and for the archetypes that exist here, you don't really care as much as to whether they match your subclass or not, they don't bring out that much excitement. The bow, I would say the best role that the bow can get is for PvE is maybe Explosive Head and Hatchling. That's pretty good. You can get Archer's Tempo and Hatchling, also, you know, pretty good, but at the same time, like if I'm gonna use a Hatchling weapon, I'd probably just go with basically any other weapon, unless for some reason I specifically need a bow. Right, like they're good rolls, but they're not exceptional rolls. In PvE, I'd say the god roll for the bow is Archer's Tempo and Successful Warm-Up. Like that's a pretty neat combo. I actually don't think there's that many bows that can roll with that combo. You know, you get a kill, you get a precision shot, all of a sudden your bow's drawing and like half the speed. Like that's very quick. That's really neat. But again, it's a very niche role to fill. Right, the sidearm, of course, I've said this in a previous video, the sidearm definitely carries the loot from the dungeon, because I'm getting ahead of myself, because the sidearm is so much fun. The sidearm has a lot of power behind it. It's great in terms of ammo economy. It is all around just a wonderful weapon. But the sword and the sniper, the last two there, again, the sniper especially, like, you know, and again, I will say this, I'm not an avid sniper user outside of PvP. Like in PvP, that's where I do my sniping. And in PvP, it's directly contending with things like Eye of Soul. Like I can equip Names Lance with its PvP god roll, or I can equip Eye of Soul with its god roll, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, I have a snapshot opening shots Eye of Soul from a couple seasons ago. Very, very good sniper. That is in a league of its own. Names Lance does not really tickle my fancy. It doesn't make me go, ooh, like, yeah, super excited to use that. Like, it just doesn't. And I think it's also, you know, I know that there is bias here because I don't prefer to use sniper rifles. You know, I look at sniper rifles, and in PvE, the roles I'd look for are maybe like firing line, triple tap, maybe 4 times the charm, maybe reconstruction. Like there's basically boss DPS roles that I'm looking for. And I know that Bungie, they get bored of the same roles being the best. Right? Outlaw kill clip. That's a tried and true classic. It's good in PvE, it's good in PvP. Like, yeah, like it's a great role, but I'm sure the Bungie devs get tired of, okay, let's put outlaw and kill clip on this. How many other hand cannons or scout rifles or pulse rifles, whatever, have outlaw and kill clip? Like, tons of them. Every season we're getting weapons with outlaw and kill clip. Like, yes, it's a great combo, but it's kind of getting lackluster. So I understand where the devs are coming from with trying out these new unique roles, but at the same time, the big issue that I have with these new and unique roles is that, like, the perks are not that good. Like high ground, for example. High ground, I mean, I can't even think of a scenario like a boss damage scenario where high ground would be a viable option. Like, I mean, again, this is just off the top of my head. Like, you could make an argument maybe in Deepstone Crypt, you climb on top of one of those little buildings and shoot down on Taniks, maybe. But for the most part, most bosses are above you. So high ground isn't working. You know, you've got things like slice. Like, I don't know about y'all, but I don't want slice on a sniper. Like, a sniper should be killing most targets in one shot anyways, 1 to 2 shots. Like, I don't need slice. Like, I'd rather have that on a primary. You know, the roles are just lackluster. And I don't know why they did this, because if you think of something like Ghosts of the Deep, Ghosts of the Deep had Cold Comfort with, you know, Envious Assassin and Explosive Light. Nutty good combo. Impact Casing, like, I have one. It is such a good rocket launcher. It had the New Pacific Epitaph, which was the first and only of its kind. It's a stasis wave frame grenade launcher. It can also get some really awesome rolls. It can get, what is it? Collective Action, which is great for Stasis Titan. Well, Stasis anything really, but especially, you know, Stasis Titan, because you send out that wave to destroy, you know, the crystals in front of you. Like, it's great. It's awesome. Very cool. Not complaining about it. But then you have this dungeon, and it feels like the rolls are just a little bit lackluster. But beyond just this, sorry, we've talked for a long time. What are we at? 7 minutes about the new dungeon and its weak perks. I want to move on, and I actually want to talk about raid perks, and specifically raid perks for this one, because the question I guess I have is whether or not raid perks should remain exclusive to raid weapons. Here's a TLDR. No, but also yes. But, you know, let's dive into it. Of course, if you are relatively new here, Reconstruction and Rewind rounds both used to be raid exclusive perks. You could only get those perks on Deepstone Crypt and Vault of Glass weapons, respectively. And they were some of the most sought after perks in the game. You know, like if you got a heritage, for example, with, you know, Reconstruction and Recombination or something like that. Like, that was a big deal. That was awesome. You know, if you got a commemoration with Reconstruction, that was a huge deal. You get a 150 round magazine just for using your primary and your special ammo weapons while you're heavy reloaded automatically. Like, it's such a good perk. Rewind rounds, the same thing. You know, it used to only roll on Vault of Glass weapons. You know, Praetus Revenge, you could sit there and beam into a boss, constantly be reloading your sniper. You know, very good, very fun perk, but it has made its way out of these raids and onto a select few weapons. And I think that the way Bungie has done this is really smart, because in my opinion, the weapons that they're putting Reconstruction and Rewind rounds are world drops, either world drops or seasonal weapons. Now, the seasonal weapons, I don't know about y'all, but seasonal weapons for the most part they're not that great. Like last season, I literally don't think there's any weapons from last season that I'm using constantly in my arsenal. This season, I think the fusion rifle from this season, the I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but you know, the Strand 500 round per minute charge time fusion rifle, pretty good. It's got some pretty neat rolls and whatnot, but they're putting Reconstruction Rewind rounds. They're moving them away from just being raid weapon perks, specifically to, you know, DSC and VOG, Deepstone Crypt and Vault of Glass, you know, onto other raid weapons, but they're also putting on some other weapons, you know, non-in-game weapons. Arvindil, for example. Arvindil, I want to say, was the first weapon that they added Reconstruction to that was not an in-game weapon. I could be totally wrong in that, but I remember I got one with Reconstruction and Shield Clip, and I was like, oh my gosh, super excited. Long time ago when that happened, but yeah, they've started moving these perks out of the raid loot pool, but there's still a bunch of perks that are raid exclusive. Sword logic, perfect example. Paracausal affinity is another good example. You know, and whether or not these weapons should remain as raid specific, like perks, I'm gonna say no, but I think that Bungie needs to be careful with how they do this, right? We're gonna take, for example, Sword Logic. Sword Logic is a Hive theme perk. Little tiny bit of lore lesson for you here. Sword Logic is what the Hive follow. Basically, it states you kill stuff to gain more power. The more powerful things you kill, the more powerful you become. That is literally what Sword Logic does. Like if you kill a red bar, like a dreg, you get a, like, what is it, 10% damage boost for 5 seconds. But if you kill an orange bar, it's a 15% damage boost for 7, and then a yellow bar is like a, what is it, 20% damage boost for 10 seconds, and you know, so on and so forth. And you can constantly keep refreshing it. And so as long as you can get kills with, you know, follow the sword logic, so to speak, you will remain an incredibly powerful beast. But if you die or if you run out of time, you lose that. That to me makes sense to only have on Hive themed weapons. The Crota's Inn weapons are currently is the only raid that these perks can drop on. It makes sense that they only drop on Crota's Inn weapon, or on Hive themed weapons. And when I say Hive theme, I mean think about any of the Crota's Inn weapons. You know, Word of Crota, Fang of Irute, Fang of Irute, Song of Irute, stuff like that. They are very explicitly Hive themed. They've got the crusty Hive bones on them. Some of them have like a thrall's skull on the barrel and stuff like that. Like these make sense to have sword logic on because they are Hive specific weapons. Weapons from like last season, for example, like Bria's Love, right? They're not really like Hive themed, right? Like they might be involved and tied into the Hive somehow, but to me, they're not exclusively Hive themed. Maybe if we get a season in the future where the weapons are explicitly Hive themed, then we can start seeing sword logic moved from exclusively on Crota's Inn weapons to these, you know, other Hive themed weapons. You know, for example, if we get Garden of Salvation or Vault of Glass Reprise, does it make sense to have sword logic? Sorry, I forgot the name. It doesn't make sense to have sword logic on these weapons because they're not Hive themed. They're more like Vex themed, I guess. And I'm sure that Bungie will create a neat new Vex themed perk for Vault of Glass weapons and maybe for Garden of Salvation weapons when they hopefully eventually reprise those weapon drops. But you know, it's makes sense to have sword logic on Hive themed weapons only. But I don't want to limit, or I don't think that you know, thematic limitations should be applied, because I feel like there are some weapon perks that do belong on raid weapons only. And one of the one that comes to mind first and foremost is Paracausal Affinity. Paracausal Affinity is, in my opinion, one of the best damage perks in the game, right? And it states basically, if you get a kill with the either the light or darkness affinity of the weapon, so if you're using a strand weapon and you get a strand kill, whether it's a strand subclass kill, strand heavy weapon kill, kill with a tangle that you picked up, you will get a 20% damage boost. It can also self-proc, because if you have a strand weapon, it's going to get a kill. That's a strand kill. It's going to self-proc. It is an incredible perk, and it lasts for like 7 seconds, which is a good long time, and it can constantly be refreshed. This, to me, makes sense to have on exclusively just raid weapons. And I would say not just, and not just exclusively on raid weapons, but I think it should be featured on every raid weapon, right? Because, well, hold on. No, actually, I don't think it should be exclusively on raid weapons. Maybe when Final Shape drops and we have this whole, battle of paracausality between light and darkness, then you can start throwing it on some other weapons in those groups, right? I don't know. I think that it's difficult because any perk that you have, Recombination, which is a Deepstone Crypt specific perk, Recombination, it's like, you have to have something unique for a raid. You have to have a reason to do a raid. Hey, I want to do Crota's Inn because Sword Logic is an awesome perk. Sword Logic is a fantastic perk, as long as you can keep it going, of course. I want to do Deepstone Crypt because it has, some awesome perks like Recombination and there's another one, there's a third one, I can't remember the name of it. Redirection, that's what it is. And Redirection and stuff like that. And so I think that having some raid specific perks makes sense, but also I think that it's okay that Bungie is letting these things like reconstruction, rewind rounds seep into the world loot pool and more standard loot pool, right? Like, I don't know. But moving on from there, I did want to talk about origin traits. One thing that I had been thinking about as well in terms of raid origin traits is I believe that raid origin traits should have two options. Your origin trait for that raid. So for example, Crotazin has the Curse Thrall origin trait. That's what it's called. You get a melee kill, then for the next like 7 seconds, any kill you get with that weapon causes a Curse Thrall explosion. That is super awesome. Very unique. It has its role. It's not, like an insanely cracked out anything like that, but it's good where it needs to be. You have what's another one? Deepstone Crypt has Bray Inheritance. Every kill you get gives you a small amount of ability energy. Like all of these, or every time you deal damage, you get a small amount of energy, right? Again, that's a very cool perk. What I think though is that an additional origin trait should be added across all raid weapons. That origin trait should be Harmonic Resonance. Harmonic Resonance is of course unique to the Root of Nightmares raid. It basically, when you have multiple weapons from said whatever set it is equipped, it increases the the reload speed, the handling. I think that's it. The reload speed and handling of those weapons. So if you have 3 Root of Nightmares weapons equipped, you're gonna have Harmonic Resonance times 2 on there, and you get a boost to your reload, you get a boost to your handling, which is pretty cool. But I also feel like it's a little bit lackluster, it's a little bit limiting. So I think that just having that apply to every single raid weapon just makes sense. Hey, if you have, instead of just, hey, if you have specifically Root of Nightmares weapons, you say, hey, if you have multiple raid weapon equipped, multiple top tier in-game weapons equipped, you get these bonuses. I don't know, like maybe I'm a little bit crazy for thinking that. And then, if Bungie were to do that, give Root of Nightmares another unique perk, paracausality theme perk. I don't really know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of all that I've been thinking about. I would love to see, I want to see raid specific perks continue to be leaked into the world loot pool and stuff, but I also do want to see raids keep some of their exclusive perks. Maybe, or I shouldn't say I want to see raids keep exclusive perks. I want to say, I think what I mean to say here is I want to see, if Bungie's going to bring in raid specific perks or whatever it is that they're going to leak out of the pool, I think it's okay to leak their perks out of the pool. And I think actually it's probably good for the game in the long run to leak these perks out onto other weapons over time, but it needs to be done appropriately. It needs to be done thematically. Does it make sense to have a Vex themed weapon have sword logic on it, right? I don't know. That's just my thoughts. Kind of just a jumble compilation of random thoughts about in-game stuff, but I want to hear your thoughts on my thoughts here. Do you like my thoughts? Do you disagree? Do you think that Bungie should keep raid specific perks exclusive to raids? If so, tell me why in the comments. Of course, if you like today's video, drop a like, helps the channel a lot. Subscribe for more daily Destiny content, and of course, watch the videos you see on the end screen because for whatever reason, YouTube thinks you'll like them. Guys, I'll see y'all next time. Bye for now.